You've probably heard people say that by June, most of the planting season is already over. And that's exactly why so many gardeners end up disappointed later in the summer. They spend spring rushing to get seeds in the ground, assume they've missed their chance once June arrives, and then wonder why their harvest never quite lives up to expectations. But the truth is, June isn't the end of planting season. For many crops, it's actually when the best opportunities begin. By now, the soil is warm. Nights are more consistent. Seeds germinate faster. And some plants that struggle through cool spring weather suddenly take off once summer settles in. The real question isn't whether you should still be planting in June. It's whether you're planting the right things. Because not every crop appreciates summer heat. Some slow down, some bolt, and some simply don't have enough time left to give you a worthwhile harvest. That's why what you plant right now can make a huge difference in what your garden looks like by late summer and early fall. In this video, we're looking at 11 crops that are especially well suited for June planting. These aren't random selections. They're crops that thrive in warm soil, take advantage of rising temperatures, and can still reward you with a productive harvest even if you're just getting started. We're also going to address one of the biggest questions gardeners kept asking. Does this actually apply where I live? Because June gardening looks very different depending on your climate. A gardener in Florida faces different conditions than a gardener in Michigan. Someone in Texas deals with challenges that don't exist in the Pacific Northwest. And if you're watching from the Southern Hemisphere, June may not even be summer at all. So as we go through each crop, we'll not only cover why it's worth planting in June, but also the conditions where it tends to perform best. Let's start with one of the easiest and most rewarding crops you can still put in the ground right now. Bush beans. If you're worried that June is too late to start something productive, bush beans are one of the first crops that should change your mind. They grow fast. In many cases, you can go from seed to harvest in roughly 2 months, which makes them a perfect fit for gardeners who want results before the season slips away. And June gives them exactly what they're looking for. Warm soil helps seeds germinate quickly and evenly. Instead of sitting in cool ground waiting for favorable conditions, bush beans often emerge fast and begin growing with very little encouragement. Another reason they're so popular is their simplicity. You don't need elaborate trellises, you don't need complicated planning, and you don't need months of patience before seeing progress. Plant them, keep them watered, and they'll usually do the rest. One common mistake is planting bush beans too early in spring when soil temperatures are still low. Growth slows, germination becomes inconsistent, and the crop never gets the strong start it could have had. By June, much of that problem disappears. Now, local conditions still matter. If you're gardening in places with extremely hot summers, such as parts of Texas or the deep south, consistent moisture becomes more important as temperatures rise. But across much of the country, bush beans remain one of the safest and most dependable crops you can plant this month. And that's what makes them such a strong June choice. While some crops ask you to wait all season, bush beans start paying you back much sooner. Another crop that absolutely loves warm weather is cucumbers. Few vegetables take advantage of June conditions quite like cucumbers. They thrive in warm soil, grow quickly once established, and often become one of the most productive plants in the garden. That's one reason many experienced gardeners aren't worried about planting cucumbers in June. In some ways, they actually prefer it. When cucumbers are planted too early, cool soil can slow germination and hold plants back during their most important early stages of growth. By June, those concerns are largely gone. The soil has warmed, the days are longer, and the plant can focus on growing instead of simply surviving. One mistake many gardeners make is letting cucumbers sprawl wherever they want. They certainly can grow that way, but a simple trellis often improves airflow, keeps fruit cleaner, and makes harvesting much easier. In hotter regions, that improved airflow can become even more valuable during the peak of summer. If your area has a long growing season, cucumbers can continue producing for weeks with very little effort. And that's exactly why they deserve a place in a June garden. They're not trying to catch up to summer. They're built for it. Another crop that takes full advantage of warm soil is summer squash. If there were an award for one of the fastest growing vegetables in the garden, summer squash would be near the top of the list. Once it gets established, growth happens quickly. That's why June still provides plenty of time for a productive harvest. One of the most useful things to know about summer squash is that it generally prefers direct sowing. While many plants tolerate transplanting, Squash often performs better when seeds are planted directly where they will grow. Warm June soil gives those seeds exactly the environment they want. The biggest advantage of summer squash is speed. For gardeners in regions with shorter growing seasons, that's important. Instead of waiting months for results, summer squash can begin producing while there's still plenty of summer left to enjoy. And for gardeners dealing with long, hot summers, the plant usually has no problem handling the heat. Give it sunlight, moisture, and enough room to spread, and it will often reward you with more squash than you expected. That's one reason it remains a favorite year after year. Now, let's talk about a crop many gardeners assume must be planted much earlier. Sweet corn. Corn has a reputation for being an early season crop, but in many regions, June is still an excellent planting window. In fact, warm soil often helps corn establish itself faster than it would have earlier in spring. One of the most common mistakes isn't planting too late. It's planting corn the wrong way. Corn relies on wind pollination, which is why planting in blocks instead of long single rows usually produces better results. The more successful the pollination, the fuller the ears you'll harvest later. Climate matters here as well. If you live in an area with a long growing season, June corn can fit comfortably into your plans. If you're gardening in a cooler region, selecting a variety that matches your remaining frost-free days becomes more important. Either way, June is far from too late for many gardeners. And when summer temperatures really begin climbing, another crop starts to separate itself from the pack. Okra. Some vegetables tolerate heat. Okra seems to enjoy it. While many crops begin struggling during the hottest weeks of summer, okra often continues growing as if nothing has changed. That's one reason gardeners in hot climates value it so highly. Many people who fail with okra assume they received poor quality seed. More often, the problem is timing. Okra prefers warm soil and consistently warm temperatures. When planted too early, germination can be slow and uneven. By June, nature has already solved much of that problem. The heat that frustrates other vegetables is exactly what helps okra thrive. For gardeners in places like Texas, Florida, and other regions known for long, hot summers, okra is often one of the safest crops on this list. Once plants begin producing, regular harvesting encourages even more pods to develop. And that's where okra really earns its reputation. It doesn't simply survive summer. It takes advantage of it. Another crop that deserves far more attention than it usually gets is southern peas. Despite the name, southern peas aren't useful only in the south. One of their biggest strengths is resilience. They handle heat well, tolerate dry conditions better than many vegetables, and continue producing when other crops begin slowing down. That alone makes them worth considering in June. But they offer another benefit as well. Like other legumes, southern peas help add nitrogen back into the soil, making them useful both as a food crop and as a contributor to overall garden health. For gardeners working with less than perfect soil, that can be a valuable combination. And if your summers regularly bring stretches of hot, dry weather, southern peas often outperform crops that demand constant attention and ideal conditions. They may not be the first crop people think about planting, but they are often one of the smartest. And the next crop on our list may be one of the best examples of why June is still packed with opportunity. Sweet potatoes. While many gardeners worry they've missed their planting window by the time June arrives, sweet potatoes are often just getting started. In fact, warm weather is exactly what they want. Unlike many garden vegetables that are grown from seed, sweet potatoes are planted using slips. Once those slips are established, long days and rising temperatures help drive vigorous growth throughout the summer. One mistake gardeners often make is underestimating how much space sweet potatoes need. Their vines can spread surprisingly far, and giving them room early usually pays off later when harvest time arrives. The biggest reason sweet potatoes belong on a June planting list is simple. They were made for long, warm seasons. If your area regularly stays warm well into September or even October, June planting still leaves plenty of time for roots to develop beneath the soil. For gardeners in regions with extended summers, this isn't a late crop. It's right on schedule. And when harvest season finally arrives, few crops feel more rewarding than pulling large sweet potatoes from the ground after months of steady growth. If sweet potatoes thrive because of summer heat, the next crop solves a problem many gardeners face every single year: Malabar Spinach. Traditional spinach in summer rarely get along. As temperatures rise, spinach often bolts, becomes bitter, and quickly stops producing the tender leaves gardeners were hoping for. That's not necessarily a gardening mistake. It's simply the nature of the plant. Malabar spinach offers a different solution. Despite the name, it isn't true spinach, but it fills a very similar role while handling heat much more effectively. That's what makes it so valuable in a June garden. Instead of declining as temperatures climb, it continues growing through some of the hottest weeks of the season. For gardeners who struggle to keep leafy greens alive during summer, that can make a huge difference. This is especially true in hotter climates, where traditional spinach may disappear long before summer reaches its peak. In those conditions, Malabar spinach often becomes the better choice. Not because it's replacing spinach, but because it's better matched to the season. Another plant that seems perfectly suited for June is basil. Basil loves warmth. Once temperatures become consistently warm, growth often accelerates quickly, and plants begin producing the fragrant leaves that make basil one of the most popular herbs in the garden. One reason basil works so well for June planting is flexibility. You don't need a large garden. A raised bed works. Containers work. Even a small sunny space can produce an impressive amount of basil throughout the season. One simple habit makes a huge difference: pinching off flower buds. Once basil begins directing energy into flowers, leaf production slows. Removing those buds encourages the plant to continue producing fresh leaves for much longer. For gardeners with limited space, basil may provide one of the highest returns on this entire list. It's easy to grow, easy to harvest, and capable of producing for months with very little effort. Now, let's move to a crop that rewards patience: Cantaloupe. Cantaloupe is one of those plants that truly benefits from summer weather. Warm temperatures and consistent sunshine help develop the sweetness, aroma, and flavor that gardeners hope for when growing melons at home. That's why June remains an excellent planting opportunity in many regions. Like sweet potatoes, cantaloupe needs enough growing season to fully mature. But if your summers stay warm well into early fall, there's often still plenty of time. One useful detail many gardeners overlook is that some cantaloupe varieties can be trained onto sturdy trellises, helping save space while improving airflow around the plants. The biggest mistake is harvesting too early. When given enough time, the fruit develops better flavor and a sweeter taste than most store-bought melons can provide. For gardeners with long, sunny summers, cantaloupe remains one of the most satisfying crops to grow. And finally, we come to the most unique plant on today's list: Moringa. Moringa isn't as common in backyard gardens as beans, cucumbers, or basil, but gardeners who grow it often appreciate how quickly it develops under the right conditions. Warm temperatures and abundant sunlight encourage rapid growth, making it one of the fastest-growing plants we've discussed today. Many people grow moringa specifically for its leaves, which can be harvested repeatedly throughout the season. Unlike some of the other crops on this list, however, location becomes especially important. Moringa performs best in warm climates and generally struggles in regions with long, cold winters. That's why understanding your local conditions matters before planting. If your climate matches what the plant prefers, moringa can become an extremely productive addition to a summer garden. Looking back at this list, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The best June crops aren't simply surviving the heat, they're benefiting from it. Bush beans, cucumbers, summer squash, sweet corn, okra, southern peas, sweet potatoes, Malabar spinach, Basil, Cantaloupe, and Moringa. Each one takes advantage of warm soil, longer days, and rising temperatures. Conditions that many gardeners mistakenly see as a problem are often exactly what these crops are waiting for. And that's why June remains one of the most underrated planting windows of the entire year. Choose the right crops, match them to your growing conditions, and what looks like a late start today can still become a very productive harvest in the months ahead.